What happens if you drink apple cider vinegar every day? Look, I need to tell you something before we begin. In March 2024, a study was published in a respected scientific journal and went viral worldwide. Newspapers splashed it across the board. Influencers celebrated. Everyone shared it. The study claimed that taking apple cider vinegar daily helped people lose up to 7 kilos in 12 weeks, a result comparable to Ozempic. Sales of apple cider vinegar exploded. Videos on the subject went viral on YouTube. Articles were written in dozens of languages. And 6 months later, the publisher itself retracted the study. It was simply deleted from the scientific literature because the data didn't add up. The results were impossible. This episode perfectly summarizes the problem with apple cider vinegar. It promises a lot, exaggerates a lot, and the truth gets buried in the noise. So today, we're going to do things differently. I'm going to show you what science actually confirms, what's still being debated, what's a myth, and the real risks that almost no one talks about. I spent weeks scouring clinical studies, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses published in journals such as Diabetes Research and Clinical Practice, BMC Gastroenterology, and the American Dental Association to give you an honest answer about apple cider vinegar. By the end of this video, you'll know what apple cider vinegar really does to the body, where the evidence is strong, where it's weak, what's a lie, and how to use it safely if you decide to try it. Before discussing the effects, you need to understand what you're taking. Apple cider vinegar is basically apple juice that has undergone 2 fermentations. First, yeast transforms the apple's sugar into alcohol, becoming cider. Then, bacteria transform this alcohol into acetic acid. And that's where the main character of this story lies. Acetic acid is the active component of apple cider vinegar. It represents about 5% of the total content, and it is what interacts with the body's metabolism. You've probably seen apple cider vinegar with that cloudy, web-like substance inside the bottle. This is called mother or vinegar mother in Portuguese. It's a colony of bacteria and enzymes that remain suspended in the liquid when the vinegar isn't filtered. Many sell vinegar with mother as superior to filtered vinegar. Science still doesn't have enough evidence to confirm that the mother makes a significant difference in the effects we'll see today. What studies have analyzed is mainly acetic acid, present in both types. Now, let's get down to what really matters. This is the best documented effect of apple cider vinegar, and it's genuinely interesting. When you eat carbohydrates, bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, the body breaks down these starches into glucose and releases them into the bloodstream. The pancreas releases insulin to handle this increase. This process is normal. The problem is when the glucose spike is too high and too rapid. Acetic acid interferes with this process in 2 documented ways. First, it partially inhibits an enzyme called desaccharидase, responsible for breaking down starches into simple sugars in the small intestine. When this enzyme works more slowly, glucose absorption is more gradual. Second, it delays gastric emptying. That is, the stomach takes longer to release food into the intestine, further moderating the entry of glucose into the bloodstream. Think of the stomach as a dam gate. Normally, when you eat carbohydrates, this gate opens quickly, and the water, in this case glucose, rushes into the river. Acetic acid acts like someone holding back this gate, opening it more slowly, allowing the glucose to enter in a controlled flow. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in the journal Diabetes Research and Clinical Practice, analyzing multiple clinical trials, confirmed that consuming vinegar before or during carbohydrate-rich meals significantly attenuates post-meal glucose and insulin spikes in healthy adults and in people with insulin resistance. Another relevant study, conducted by researchers at Lund University in Sweden and published in BMC Gastroenterology, confirmed the effect of apple cider vinegar in delaying gastric emptying. And here's an important piece of information that most videos ignore. In patients with type 1 diabetes who already had gastroparesis, a condition of abnormally slow gastric emptying, the vinegar worsened the condition. This is relevant because it shows that the same mechanism that can be beneficial for one person can be harmful to another. What science confirms? For adults without diagnosed gastrointestinal conditions, consuming small amounts of vinegar before or during carbohydrate-rich meals is associated with more moderate glucose spikes. This is the most solid effect known about apple cider vinegar. Now, for the part that most videos about apple cider vinegar skip, significant weight loss, I'll go back to the study I mentioned at the beginning. In March 2024, a clinical trial published in BMJ Nutrition, Prevention and Health made headlines worldwide. Apple cider vinegar reportedly caused a weight loss of up to 7 kilograms in 12 weeks in overweight Lebanese youths. Researchers from other countries looked at the data and couldn't reconcile the figures. The results were statistically impossible. In September 2025, the BMJ publisher retracted the study from the scientific literature, an extremely rare and serious step in the academic world. What remains of the evidence regarding apple cider vinegar and weight without this study? Much more modest evidence. A smaller Japanese study, published in Bioscience, Biotechnology, and Biochemistry in 2009, involving obese participants, found small reductions in weight and body fat with daily consumption of vinegar over 12 weeks, but the effects were modest and the study had methodological limitations. The honest conclusion is that apple cider vinegar is not a weight loss agent with solid evidence. It may moderate appetite slightly in some people, but not in a way comparable to any real intervention. Liver detoxification. There is no scientific evidence to support the idea that apple cider vinegar detoxifies the liver. The liver has its own detoxification mechanisms that work continuously, and no food or drink enhances them in a way that has been documented by science. Blood alkalization. This is one of the most popular and biologically inaccurate claims about apple cider vinegar. The argument is that despite being acidic, vinegar alkalizes the blood after digestion. The pH of human blood is tightly controlled between 7.35 and 7.45 by the body's buffering system. Any significant deviation from this range is a medical emergency. No food or drink you consume measurably alters blood pH in healthy people. What you can change with your diet is the pH of your urine, not your blood. Antimicrobial properties in humans. Acetic acid has documented antimicrobial properties in the laboratory against E. coli, Staphylococcus aureus, and Candida albicans. However, laboratory studies with bacteria in petri dishes do not directly translate to clinical effects in the human body. There is no robust evidence that taking apple cider vinegar treats or prevents infections in people. Before we get to the real risks, which are the most important part of this video and that almost no one talks about, let me ask you something. If you're learning something here that you wouldn't learn anywhere else, give it a like. This really helps the channel reach more people who need honest health information. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Now let's get to what really matters before you put a single drop of apple cider vinegar in your mouth. The real risks that nobody talks about. This is the most important topic in the video, and the most ignored. Risk 1. Erosion of tooth enamel. Apple cider vinegar has a pH of around 3.7, almost as acidic as Coca-Cola, which has a pH of 3.5. For reference, water has a pH of 7. A study published in 2022 analyzed the effect of various acidic beverages on human tooth enamel, and vinegar and apple cider vinegar had the most severe impact of all the products tested, including lemon juice, energy drinks, and sodas. The American Dental Association specifically warns against regularly consuming apple cider vinegar as a beverage, and recommends that those who insist on consuming it do so diluted in water, using a straw, and wait at least 30 minutes before brushing their teeth because enamel softened by the acid becomes more vulnerable to abrasion from the brush. Tooth enamel does not regenerate. Once lost, it's lost. Risk 2. Irritation and burning of the esophagus. Concentrated acetic acid can cause serious damage to the esophagus when consumed undiluted or in excessive amounts. A case review published in Clinical Endoscopy documented cases of esophageal ulcers in people who consumed vinegar daily without proper dilution. There are reports of severe burns requiring medical treatment. Apple cider vinegar supplements in tablet or gummy form present an additional risk. A tablet that does not go down completely may remain in contact with the esophageal mucosa and cause localized injury. Risk 3. Drug interactions. This is the most serious risk for people over 50 and the least discussed. If you take insulin or any diabetes medication, apple cider vinegar alone already reduces postprandial glucose. Combined with hypoglycemic medication, it can lower glucose below a safe level. This is a real clinical concern. If you take diuretics such as hydrochlorothiazide or furosemide, both the diuretic and excessive vinegar consumption can reduce potassium levels in the blood. The combined effect may be clinically relevant. If you take digoxin, a heart medication, changes in potassium levels directly affect the effectiveness and safety of digoxin. The American Dental Association recommends that anyone taking any medication consult their doctor before including apple cider vinegar as a regular daily routine. Risk 4. Gastroparesis, the effect that becomes a problem. Remember the Lund University study that showed vinegar slows gastric emptying? For most people, this may be neutral or mildly beneficial. But for people with gastroparesis, a relatively common condition in people with long-standing diabetes, further delaying gastric emptying may worsen glycemic control and increase digestive discomfort. How to use safely. Based on the available literature, here's what research suggests for those who decide to include apple cider vinegar in their routine. Amount. Most studies that found positive effects used between 1 and 2 tablespoons per day, 15 to 30 milliliters. Above that, the risks increase without any documented additional benefit. Never take it undiluted. The minimum recommended dilution is 1 tablespoon to at least 240 milliliters of water, a full glass. This reduces acid contact with the enamel and esophagus. Drink with a straw to minimize contact between the acid and your teeth. Studies on glucose control have used vinegar before or during meals, not on an empty stomach. Taking it in the morning on an empty stomach doesn't have the same basis as taking it before a meal containing carbohydrates. Wait at least 30 minutes after consuming before brushing your teeth. And if you have any health conditions or are taking any medication, talk to your doctor first. It's not protocol, it's prudence. The myths that continue to circulate. Organic apple cider vinegar is much more effective. The difference between organic and conventional versions in terms of acetic acid, the active component, is not documented in a way that justifies the price difference for health purposes. It's always better with mom. Mother vinegar contains bacteria and enzymes, but the evidence that it produces significant additional benefits compared to filtered vinegar is still insufficient to make that claim with confidence. The more, the better, incorrect in almost all studies. The dose that appears in positive studies is small, 1 to 2 tablespoons. Higher doses increase the risks without adding any documented benefits. Taking it on an empty stomach in the morning enhances the effects. The most documented mechanism, moderating glucose spikes, only works when carbohydrates are being digested at the same time. When fasting, there's nothing to moderate. So what happens if you drink apple cider vinegar every day? If you take it the right way, diluted in small amounts before meals containing carbohydrates, research suggests it can slightly moderate post-meal glucose spikes. That's the most solid effect there is. Significant weight loss? The most cited study was retracted from the scientific literature due to questionable data. The remaining evidence is modest. Detox, blood alkalization, cure for infections, without scientific backing. Real risks? If consumed in excess, it can cause enamel erosion, esophageal irritation, and drug interactions. And these risks are underestimated in most of the information circulating on the subject. The phrase I want you to take away from this video is, apple cider vinegar is neither a miracle nor a poison. It's a substance with real but limited effects. It can play a modest role in a healthy routine, provided it's used carefully and without expectations that science doesn't support. Before we wrap up, everything I've shared is based on published research. If you have diabetes, gastrointestinal problems, dental erosion, or are taking any medication, talk to your doctor before including apple cider vinegar in your daily routine. This channel exists to help you understand the science, not to replace medical care. If this video helped you separate what's real from what's exaggerated, share it with someone who still believes that apple cider vinegar is the solution to everything. It could be the most useful information that person receives that week. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, now's the time. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Until then.